New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
It is the Practical Prayer Podcast pre-program.
You know what? I found a note this morning of some more P words that, and it only came from talking to you.
Okay.
I said, okay, I'm going to merge that list with the one that we came up with like last week or the week before last and see what I can do with it, because it's really cool. It's a whole bunch of them.
Pivot, power, and possibility.
Yep, that was on the list.
Okay, those show up
really
on the list.
Really powerful things can, come out of teaching those words and putting them in a different perspective, or a empowering perspective.
Yeah, and the original one is the reminder of what to include in affirmation to make it powerful, positive, personal, and present tense. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that the step in creating the prayer before that is the purpose statement. Mm-hmm. And the purpose, another P. And then when you have the purpose statement, if you're looking at what you don't like and you want to turn to what you do like, that's the pivot. So they keep on showing up.
They keep showing up.
Yeah.
And this so when you wrote the book, like, you got to do another edition, to add more to it.
More P's.
More P's.
P's. No, the horrible pun, peas on earth? Not going to do it.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
yeah,
maybe I just did.
But the positive, personal, and those P's, like, really make a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the number of times that I've had somebody come up with an affirmation that misses one of them, it just jumps right out. It's like, well, that's when you get exactly what you're claiming, you're not going to like it.
You got to pay attention,
Another P.
Pay attention.
Pay attention.
Which is so cool. But it is, I'm just, even in all the work that we've done, and I say together, but not really, you're the teacher and I'm sitting there listening. And,
right, that means that you're doing the work.
Well, you already did it.
Well, okay, but you're doing the work this time.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah. By the way, for the pre-show podcast audience, Carol just passed the exam for her Doctor of Spiritual Studies. We got notice of that today. Yeah. So, congratulations. That's very exciting.
Yes, it is.
You have to wear the fun hat along with your robe.
You know what? With that question that you said, I answered, I'll just say nicely. There were a couple of others that I could have done the same thing, but I thought, well, this is going to stretch. Actually, I did do it. I started it. It was too many pages. And I said, well, they can see how I can do this, or how I will look. So if I don't do like all of this on everybody else, at least they'll know. She knows how to do it. She knows how to get the information. So if it's half as much, she got the rest, or can you do it.
Yeah, and the note came back that your responses were very thoughtful and exceptionally thorough, which is often not seen in contemporary students.
I did.
I love that.
I saw that, and wait, this is so terrible. When I saw that, I said, well, I'm old. What you expect from old people? By the time you get to this time in life, you can't just abbreviate things. You got to, act like you know something.
I'm not sure if you're thinking about the other students at the Emerson Theological Institute as being like young co-eds who are just going to do some spiritual studies and then they're going to go to cheerleader practice. I mean, that's not our cohort, pretty much.
I ain't thinking of that. All I'm thinking of is that anytime there were seniors in our classes, at any point, they always like slammed it, and I always respected that. Now I'm one of them, and I never thought about doing it. It's just like, you don't half step. My mother always said, you don't half step. She'd rip my homework up after I finished it a lot of times because I didn't do it thorough enough. So that's like something that I was taught to do, and anything else is unacceptable. Was that inspiring or traumatizing, or a little of both? Well, it wasn't inspiring, I'll tell you that. It was like, oh God, I got to do this again. I mean, there's no cut and paste and none of that stuff. When Mom tore that page out of your composition book with a ruler so the edge would be perfectly straight, that meant you had to start all over again. And there better not be any erasure. That was how it was. I thought everybody's life was like that. I don't think so, though. Not now. No, I was very happy when God invented whiteout. That was transformational for me. You know what? One day we'll just have fun talking about this, because when the calculators came out, I wasn't allowed to have one. I was not allowed. You had to do those numbers on paper and in your head. Because my father had a calculator in his head. That's a doggone gift. I didn't have it. You know, I needed this calculator, but that was not permitted. So. Yep, I can look at a word and see that it's misspelled, even if I don't necessarily know the word. And that's another one. That's a gift, as far as I'm concerned. And nowadays, you don't need to know how to read a map. You don't need to know how to follow directions. You don't need to know how to remember anything, because you can Google it. Yeah. But, you know, listen, I'm dyslexic, so it could be spelled correctly, and I'll look at it and say, what the heck is that? It depends on the time of day. But, yeah, you're right. You don't have to think these days. I don't know if that's... You notice the difference between somebody who is brilliant and in charge of their life and somebody who is completely bereft? What is it? Battery power. Battery goes dead, they go stupid. That is so embarrassing, right? That's embarrassing when people just don't even care, you know, they don't. But that's the life. That's it. So the usual invitation for the folks who are listening on the live stream or watching on the recording on the live stream, go to BeTheLight.com, b-the-light.com, and you can make a suggestion for a prayer that we can do or a topic that we can have for the show, or if there's something particular you'd like us to pray about, we will rub the serial numbers off and go through the whole process about your issue on a future episode of the Practical Prayer Podcast. One other note, I'm getting this close to having the on-demand version of the Practical Prayer class released, so that you don't have to wait for one of our quasi-regularly scheduled start times to dive in and do what has been a 5-session class up until now. Where will we be able to find the on-demand? Well, at BeTheLight.com. Oh. And okay. It will then echo out from wherever the instructional host is. So that's what I'm doing now. The videos are shot. We're editing. We've got the first lesson put together that's in beta review, and very exciting. I would be very exciting. Okay, well, stand by. The excitement is about to pour through you. Shall we start the Practical Prayer Podcast for today? Sure. Okay. We'll play the opening. We'll come back and talk about newness. Okay.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony. I'm so excited about this today.
You wanted to talk about newness.
Yes.
And it came up in one of the daily meditations, and it captivated your attention.
It did, because I think it's just so much new that I've experienced over the last couple of years. I'm just so, freaking excited.
Well,
it's just like life is just presenting me with things to be excited about, and they're all new.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I mean, that's our first name, because this is all about New Thought, which, by the way, is not new. As we keep on pointing out, New Thought is not about something that's different or new. It is about having a thought that's different than the previous thought, that's different than the old thought. Because in the beginning, there was nothing. And darkness and void, I believe, is how it was described. And then there was a thought. And that thought preceded the law acting upon the thought. And then from there flowed everything. So it turns out in that model of things, which is the universe that we live in, the New Thought is pretty important.
Well, that's such a deep perspective. I love it, and it's New Thought, and it's right. But what is so simple for me is that in studying New Thought as much as I could, and then I would, go to other religions, and you know how I just peel back the onion until I can't get any further. And I'm finding the principles so far back, let's go to maybe the 12th century and even before, because writings, weren't really abundantly available. And I'm finding this, and I'm thinking, this is so exciting. Now, I don't know what's wrong with me, because things are really just fascinating me, and they may not be that big a deal. I don't know.
They're definitely a big deal.
But it's incredibly fascinating to me that you can find these principles so far back, and then people get all freaked out because this is a new way of thinking, and they don't trust it because it's new. This is not new. It's new to you, but it's not new. And when you find that, it's so much comfort in it, and it's just exciting to see that it was there before. And you know what? History makes you feel comfortable about things, because if it's been there and it's still there, then, at least to me, that's really great. Let me see what I can get from it, because if it lasted this long, it must be pretty powerful. So that's why New Thought is so exciting to me.
Yeah. Well, it starts out being such a simple principle that there is consciousness. And in fact, there's one consciousness. There's one infinite mind that does all the thinking, and that it has created everything, including us. And that the mind that we think is our unique little solo mind over here, at our home address, is actually simply an aspect of that infinite mind. And the illusion is really strong. So what's happened is every once in a while, somebody who is a particular visionary will come along and understand our oneness, our connection, the fact that we are all part of this one. They'll understand the unity. And what tends to happen is that their energy level, their consciousness rising to that level, gets people's attention. It's like, whoa, what's going on with Bobby? Because Bobby's got it going on, and so they want to start knowing from Bobby what's going on. So here is this newly enlightened person, or this newly aware person, trying to explain in language that doesn't exist a universal truth that nobody else can see because their senses are telling them that it's different. And what happens is, when they're passionate enough, the people believe their version of the story, And then they just start living by the story. And of course, the story is not about a new thought, because as soon as whoever the avatar is says this is the story, people stop paying attention to the truth he was talking about and start paying attention to the story. You know, game on. The Buddha famously said, I come pointing to the moon. Do not mistake my finger for the moon. And in every religion, the first time I heard that, I wasn't attributed to the Buddha. It was attributed to Jesus. You know, who said, I come pointing to the moon, do not mistake my fingernail for the moon. And people have been like worshiping his fingernail ever since. And I can just imagine going, no, that's not the idea. That's not what I said. And keeping it new is where the transformation happens. That's where the revolutionary part of this is. It is so simple, it is so basic, and it is so counterintuitive that it takes a long time to dispense with all the stuff that we've learned before so that we can get back to this pretty simple but immensely powerful truth.
Isn't that amazing? It's so simple. And what's in our belief system and all of that, chunked down in our subconscious mind and everything, is keeping us from embracing and feeling the freshness of this simplicity. And I know when I first started reading and understand, I'm like, it's got to be more to it than this. It's got to be. It's not. But I think where it gets challenging is when it conflicts with what you and I and what Don Miguel Ruiz talks about, the domestication, that process that we've been through and all of that that's chunked down in us. You just think, I got to get rid of all this stuff. And that's what happened with me, because I wanted to live in this new thought and this new simplicity that was there, and I began to understand that it wasn't new, and I thought, this is wonderful, but why am I not experiencing it? And then I discovered why, stuff in my
Right.
belief system and so forth. And so you say things to me like, you work and you do this and you do that, but like, I'm so serious. I want the stuff out, and it takes work, and I'm going to do the work, because
Yes,
I
you
don't
are.
like this. Well, I mean, how else is going to happen? I'm not going to wake up like, all of a sudden I'm going to, let's use the term, you use consciousness, and you talk about higher consciousness and all that. That's like so, I don't feel like I'm, it's just so big. And do I deserve to say that I'm achieving higher consciousness? I certainly want to, but I can't until I get this garbage out. So,
Well, as you go through the process, the first time you notice that there's some garbage around you and you get rid of it, you have stepped to a higher level of consciousness, because you're no longer dragging that stuff around with you anymore. I think personally that it is very healthy to not say, oh, look, I'm at a higher level of consciousness, because that implies that the work is done, and that is mistaken. Mm-hmm. The work is not done. Very, very few people over the course of history have gotten to the top of the mountain where all the work is done. And they're pretty noteworthy. They're avatars. There are religions named after them. We know who they are still. And all the rest of us are still on our way up the mountain. And that's where we think, and we find that all the differences are. Because there's a New Thought person who's climbing their spiritual mountain, digging for truth, and a Christian who's on the way up the same mountain. They're on a different side of the peak, but they're heading up the same mountain. And when we look at each other, it's like, you're way over there. What's wrong with you? Or you're down below me, or that's going to take you forever, or whatever. You're on the wrong path, because my path is the path to the top. And there's, the Muslims and the Buddhists are on their own path halfway around the mountain. And it's like, everybody's having an opinion about everybody else. You get to the top, there's only one top.
yeah. And if you can see that, or convince people, or not, can't convince people, but if they see that, the journey becomes half as difficult, I think. Because you're not looking from the left or the right, or trying to be right. Last week, I don't know if it was in the podcast or pre or post show, whatever, you said, I like things. Carol likes to have things to happen right now.
You do. If I didn't say it in the podcast last week, let me say it this week. You like to have things happen right now.
I do not agree with that.
You don't?
I'm sorry.
You like things to, you prefer to have them happen 5 years ago?
No, I prefer to do what I need to do for them to happen.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So if you tell me it's not going to happen for 5 years, I got to say, next thing I'm going to ask you is, what do I need to do to make sure it doesn't take 7?
Okay.
You know?
That would be what the math people call a corollary.
Okay.
Because
so,
you'd prefer to have it happen now, but if it's going to take 5, you're okay with 5, but you don't want it to take 6.
I don't even know about the now. You know, I want to be on the way. I want to be on the way. Because see, I finished this degree, and I'm so grateful for it, but I'm so grateful to you because you helped me along the way. So there were times I would look at you or listen to try to figure out what's the next thing. What did he say? Let me figure this out. Because I don't want to have to repeat this. You know, if I got to stay up a couple extra hours tonight, read a couple of extra books, read it 3 or 4 times, okay. But when I come to class the next time, I don't want to have to not know what it is.
You have your eye on the prize.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Yes.
When I was in seminary, I had 3 young children, and we were living on campus. So I look back now and think I was crazy to have these children and try to accomplish this thing, but I did. And the dean requested my presence in his office. Somehow I knew it wasn't to be praised. And so I went, and sure enough, I was scolded because I was not participating in the life of the campus. You know, I wasn't doing the stuff that people were doing after class. Well, these were young people, right? They could play backgammon and whatever else they were playing. I had to go home and fix dinner, do homework, stuff like that, and stay up and do my work.
Mm-hmm.
I had to make a choice. And that to me is like everything else. When you want to achieve a certain level of whatever, okay, so I'm not going to get to the top. But tomorrow, I could be better than I am today, and the next day, and so forth. But put the energy into it, because I don't want to find myself next week in the same spot. You know, I mean, that's not fun.
Oh yeah, well that's
Right?
you know that's the hamster wheel. You keep on running, and you wind up being in the same place, even though you're putting in all that effort and energy. You want that thing to move. I'm
looking to the people who I think are at a higher level than me, and I hope I'm explaining this right. But I have ascended masters. I call them my mentors, and they're not here anymore. And I respect them and honor so much of what they did while they were here, the things that they understood, that I will sit with them or read or whatever, because I want that. I want that. I don't want to sit there and say, oh, that was really nice what Florence Scovel Shinn said. I want to be there and understand exactly what she said.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Now, I don't know if that has to do with the now or what. I just want to know.
And that's the practice about attuning yourself so that you are aware of the intention, of the consciousness, of the understanding of the mentor, the teacher, the ascended master that you're dealing with. And when you do that often enough and long enough, then suddenly you find yourself answering questions the way they would have answered them. Mm-hmm. So you're like, who was that? Oh, wait a second, that was me channeling Florence Scovel Shinn, or Ernest Holmes, or Neville, or whoever it is, and didn't have to think of, I'm going to quote somebody, because it becomes part of the fabric of who you are and what you're bringing to it. And that's what happens as we elevate our consciousness, as we move our way up the mountain, is we tend to more easily and more automatically think along those lines instead of having to work through the process. Let's take a break and then continue with some newness.
You can put practical prayer to work in your life, and Reverend Bill Marchiony can help. He is offering an online class that teaches you to create your own practical prayer in 5 weekly 1-hour sessions. The final hour brings your practical prayer together, anchored in live original music by a notable New Thought musician. Practical prayer is based on the most effective prayers found in religions and spiritual practices all over the world. Use it to deepen ever more fully into the truth of your spiritual nature. It's the core of a transformational spiritual practice that's simple, even if it's not always easy. Reverend Bill is also available for private spiritual counseling prayer sessions. Together, you'll lean into the challenges you've experienced in life and explore the transformation that's possible through practical prayer. You'll uncover old, hidden beliefs and uproot them to make way for the life of your dreams. Everything you need to know is on the website at b-v-light.com. That's b-v-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony, and we're going to talk about newness even more.
We're going to talk about newness. Yeah, I'm going to repeat that exercise that we've done before, which is where everybody who's listening, as you just observe where you are in your breath, whether you're breathing out or you're breathing in. So if you're in the middle of an exhale, feel that exhale finish. And if you're in the middle of an inhale, feel that inhale finish. And the newness that comes about in our lives isn't, a lot of times we think, oh, I'm going to start with an inhale. That's where it begins. But unless you've had an exhale previously, there's really no room for the new breath to come in. And when you're at full capacity, when you've got a complete lung full of air, the next thing that's going to happen, that newness is going to happen because you let it go. Because you release that breath that has served you so well up until now, and that makes room for another breath. So the newness isn't in the breath that I'm bringing in. The newness might be in that which I'm releasing. It's about being in the flow, and that way we're able to invite newness in all the time. Mm-hmm. There's always something new that's available, and it's only when we label it as, oh, the inhale is where the newness happens, that we then limit ourselves because there's something bigger that is going on, and there's an awareness that's bigger that we could be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think with the newness that, and I guess you can tell, like, I'm probably still fascinated a little bit by this morning's talk that you gave. And it's really short, and people would be amazed. I come away like I have just been to a lecture and I found out something great, but that's because I'm looking for greatness and it comes wherever I am. Aside from that, when it comes to newness, it's like a testimony of oneness to me, which is continuously fascinating, because everything that's new really already is, or was before I got here, in the one mind, and now I'm becoming aware of it, and I think that's so exciting. So, for example, with my mentors, I was so, I'm so affectionately close to them. I hold them in such great affection because I feel like I've been taught by them so much in times when I didn't have anybody to teach me. But then when I meet other teachers, you and let's say Paul Selig, because we hadn't talked about him before. I didn't think you liked Ascended Masters or people that did stuff like that, so I never mentioned him to you. But
I mean, like channels, yeah.
Yeah, channels. But he is like so different. And so when I listened to him, I had to develop an ear for his style. But that's everybody, all channels are different. So I had to develop this ear. And I was listening to a lesson that he was doing on fear. And I had to stop I said, what? Because I did a lesson on fear. And I'm listening to him, and he was doing it greater and more in depth and bringing it up. And I thought, well, no surprise there, right? He's like way deeper than me. But it was still exciting and refreshing because I thought to myself, all of this is in the one mind. And we access it however we're able at whatever level of consciousness we are. And that's what comes. And I was really deep, was teaching a subject.
Say that part one more time because the sound dropped out.
Okay, so here's this guy who's really deep, teaching a subject that I had taught, and look at how much more there is, how much more substance there is to what he's teaching. And it all comes from the one mind, so I'm excited, like I could go back and get some more from this one thing. But I think what I'm saying very awkwardly is that we're all doing it from one mind through the personality that we have and the way we express things and the way we have from the experiences that we've had. And it's one mind and one thing coming out in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
I don't see how people can't get excited over the moon about this. Well, because now I'm going to be looking for other people that have taught the same subject and say, whoa, this is crazy interesting to me.
Yeah, I want to make 2 points about that. First of all, Paul Selig, because he's a channel and he has these non-corporeal beings and presences that he's channeling, he has a lot of bench strength when he says something. So there's a lot behind it. So it's not just him. And the other thing is that I'm going to say thank you for noticing that one of my gifts is to say something in 30 seconds that gives you something to think about for a whole day. Because, as you pointed out, that's what happened on the morning meditation. And I do those twice a day, 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the evening, and they're on Zoom. You can find them on newthoughtphilly.org or the meetup group, Philly Spiritual Adventures. And anybody is welcome to join in for any of those. And the other one is God Calls, where I come up with what for most ministers would be a topic for a 20-minute talk, and I do it in 30 seconds. Set up, explain it, and finish it. And that's my thing. And sometimes people go, oh, that was nice. And other times they spend a day or two thinking about it.
Listen, in the language that I learned from hanging around these young people and entrepreneurs, you drop bars.
Okay.
You drop bars, you drop gold. And, so when you drop things like that, you have no idea how many lessons or videos I pick up from your one-liners, and just because I showed you one or two of them, I can do that. But it's a gift that you have, and I listen because I said, man, I'd be crazy not to listen to this because something's going to come. He drops bars every morning.
Well, thank you. When I was doing the comedy morning radio shows, sometimes I'd write a joke and say it on the air. And then the other morning shows in town would be saying it 2 days later. And everybody in the world is saying it a week after that. And people would say, don't you get upset? People are stealing your joke? It's like, they're like Doritos. Crunch all you want, we'll make more.
Yes.
Because it's not the one that I just did. It's the next one that I'm going to do. That's where my gift is. If I spent all my time, in copyright court trying to defend my last joke, I would be not a very funny person. And probably not a very spiritual person if I tried to protect these things.
And that's part of that is knowing your gift and understanding what a gift is. It doesn't have to, you don't have to hold on to something and own it. It's just there, and spirit is going to, I never, ever, ever worried about somebody doing something like I do it because they can't, nor can I do it the way they can. Most of the time I'm admiring what other people do because that's really cool. I never thought about doing it that way or saying it that way. Now I might steal it, but I will give you credit. I'll do that. I'll give you credit and fly with it because, hey, listen, that's spirit put it out there and people need to hear it and understand. If it helps understand my thing better when it goes out, I'm stealing it.
And, getting back to the fundamental principle of New Thought, that there is one mind, you can't steal anything. Mm-hmm. It's there in the one mind, and it's individualized as that person over there, and then you get it because they said it, or you get it because you're part of the same mind, and it doesn't really make that much difference. I mean, plagiarism aside, just in the outside world, we try to avoid plagiarism. And it's probably not because it isn't a good idea that somebody else already said. It's because it short circuits our own ability to think and express ourselves. If we're just copying and pasting somebody else's words, then we're not adding anything to the value proposition. We then turn from being a divine expression of God's infinite good into a photocopier.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with photocopiers.
I don't know, because I ain't.
But the fact that they're helpful when you need to get another copy of a document does not necessarily mean that that's a good way of studying or sharing or deepening.
If you go into it with the attitude that this is what someone else has said, and what can I get from that to enhance what I'm thinking, or to embellish it or help my thoughts along, or even critiquing my own thoughts based on what someone else has said. I use that to critique ideas. I have an office, and everything that happens in this office is correct. It's wonderful. It's a fabulous idea. Once you come across that threshold, there's nothing wrong that ever happens in this office in terms of thought. Now, if I really believe that, I'm crazy. So I do have to bring in other ideas, and sometimes when I consult the ascended masters, it is to see whether what I'm feeling is consistent with some idea that they may have had. Does that mean that mine may, if it's different, it's wrong? No, but we need to be able to bounce against everything. It's like, we use the term, you used it, and I love it, infinite intelligence. The source is infinite intelligence. That is huge to me. So I cannot be wrong. I cannot be right. I can't have all there is. I can't have the last word, because infinite intelligence is like so huge. I need to go and see if I can find some more, which also contributes to trying to get the degree by the pound. I laughed at that so hard.
And when Carol submitted her written examination, it was highly detailed. That's where the earning the degree by the pound remark came from. And I'm just going to say that if we're wandering around in a maze and we go down some distance and get to a dead end, it's easy to say, oh, I went the wrong way and I've wasted my time. But in fact, what we've done is we've learned that this particular way leads to a dead end. So now we can continue, have to backtrack, and go down in a different direction and see if the next one doesn't lead us to a dead end. But to say that it's a waste and a failure just because it didn't lead us to where we initially thought we wanted to go doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. There's always value, and that's what the newness is. Let's take a break, and then we will do a prayer on newness.
Get inspiration in an instant. God calls are the gentle and uplifting moment of truth to help you remember that the bright light of God's love is shining right now as you.
It's your God Call with Reverend Bill.
Start your 2-week free trial today, and you'll get a phone call 4 times a week from Reverend Bill with an uplifting half-minute message filled with insight, wisdom, story, and fun.
Let your light shine.
You can answer the call to listen to it live or let it go to voicemail so you can hear it later. After the free trial, your subscription is just $5.95 a month. The details are at godcall.org. God calls are disruptive, intentionally.
Whenever you write something, put on a gold star.
They take you away from your routine to remind you about the truth of who you really are. They come at random times between 8:15 a.m. and 6 p.m., so you won't be expecting them. And somehow, the message is exactly what you need to hear at the time.
Magic is loose in the world.
It's a moment of motivation in the middle of your day. Find out more and start your 2-week free trial now at godcall.org.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
We're going to do a prayer on newness. And the image that I came up with in my mind was an eternal flame. So when you're standing in an eternal flame, the tomb of the unknown or wherever the eternal flame that you're looking at happens to be, there are different ways that you can look at it. One is to say this flame, this light has been shining since, and as far back in history as that's been a thing. Or you can look at it and say this is an eternal flame, and the intention is for it to continue to shine its light and continue to be that brightness forever. And another way that you can look at it is this light is shining right now. It's got a long history to it, it's got a long future ahead of it, and right now it is shining. And we can look at it in any of those perspectives and get something different out of it. But in all three, we get the opportunity for the newness, because even before that eternal flame was first lit, there was the intention to have this marker, this light, this beacon, to symbolize whatever it was that we have set about by having it there. And then in every subsequent moment, for every person who gazes upon it, for every situation and circumstance that happens, that newness is unfolding at every moment. And the intention is for it to continue unfolding and for it to continue shining forever. The same thing is true for us. We can claim that newness now. So if we close our eyes and turn away from the circumstance and the situation around us and open to that bigger picture, to understand that there is one infinite creative power that has created everything. It has created everything. Everyone, everywhere, every moment, every activity. Everything that exists is that divine presence taking its own new and particular form. And at some point, everything goes through the transition from being possible to being actual. As the possibilities begin to unfold and the circumstances and situations begin to interweave upon each other. And at every moment along the way, there is that present now moment. And it changes, and it rearranges, and newness comes about in every moment, in every breath, in every activity. It's always new. There is always something new. And looking forward into the future, there is the possibility of everything new. Everything changing. Everything is subject to unfoldment and change and enhancement and development. And that includes each of us. Each of us is an expression of that divine light, that divine goodness. We are sharing and shining and revealing that infinite power and presence in our own specific and particular way. So as we take each breath, as we take each step, as we move through our lives, we can set that conscious intention for that newness to come about in a way that brings uplift to us individually and to everyone around us. That experience of more love, of more harmony, of more health, of more prosperity, of more creativity, of more connection, as more spiritual depth, as more vitality, as more of whatever it is that we are desiring. We let go of whatever's not serving us any longer and let it move into the past. Embrace that next new possibility and invite in the newness. And that infinite creative power that has created everything, that has created each of us, continues to create. It continues to follow that conscious intention. It fills in that channel, bringing more and more of this newness into life. And the experiences that we describe as good, as fulfilling, as uplifting, as prosperous and joyous and healthy and loving and complete, continue to unfold. And that's the goodness and the newness that's at hand right now. And there's nothing that stands in the way of this power. There is nothing that opposes this creative process. Good and more good is unfolding right here and right now for each of us and for all of us. And for this, I'm deeply grateful. Grateful for the awareness of the process. Grateful for the willingness of each one listening to the sound of my voice to be involved in this prayer, to join me in setting this intention and invite something new. And so with this feeling of thanks, I speak this word, I release it into that creative law, the one that has created everything. And I know it is now creating this. And so I let it be. So it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
The end of the podcast episodes always sneak up on me. It's like, oh, we're going to do a prayer. And then we get to the end of the prayers. Oh, we're done. No, bye-bye.
Do you have a timer? Because it's just almost, I can almost tell when you're going to say, we're going to take a break and we're going to do a prayer. Do you have a timer there?
Yeah, you probably have one as well in the top left corner. It says live.
I do.
You saying that? Live 45, yes. So
never paid any attention to it. So you know when you're going to take a break.
Well, I know that we started that the pre-show went 9 minutes and 50 seconds, and that's when we started the intro. So I wanted to go about a half an hour. They usually go about 35 minutes. So I count backwards in my head.
So nice. I just know. I just feel it like, I think we're probably getting ready to come up on a break. But now that you've pointed my attention to this clock, I'm probably going to glance at it every now and then. But
as long as you don't spend the entire podcast staring at it and counting, that would be good.
Probably not.
Now, in your radio broadcasting career, you just kind of, you're doing the FM cool jazz thing where you just sort of put on your sultry voice and drop the needle on the LP and let it go for a while, and just when the show's over, so that's no more records, and probably weren't involved in something like hitting the network news at the top of the hour.
No, when we switched from terrestrial radio to internet radio, I was on somebody else's station, and it was a little bit of that, but I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Like I had a little study in between. I had 2 hours. So there was 3 studies that went in between those times, and I knew exactly what time it was supposed to happen. But it wasn't as tight, so, I knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when my first job in radio was at NBC and WNBC in New York, and they would do local news, and there would be the DJ, and then they would do the local news, and they do that for a minute, and then they do the network news for 3 minutes, and then they come back and do some more of the local news. And the newscaster had to hit the top of the hour, or the top of the minute, and it was actually supposed to be 3 or 4 seconds past the top of the minute because the people at the network would say stuff that we didn't want to put on the air locally. So it was to that level of precision that we needed to make sure that we get the cast started and stuff.
Yeah, I'm listening. That's very detailed, and you have to pay a lot of attention. I didn't have to. It was just me and whatever I decided to do. I had a format. It was mine.
Mm-hmm.
Plus,
and if you change it, then nobody really notices.
Nobody really noticed, but it was the point in changing it. It made it easy for me. I know what I'm doing here, here, and here. People like it. They know what to expect here, here, and here, and bang, we're done. Yeah,
as and when it's hitting the network, if you hear the network guy say "Marchiony with the news," then you know that they missed it.
Yeah, that's a level of professionalism that I didn't have to reach, or I didn't reach, but it was good.
But knowing you, if it had been part of the program, you would have been excellent at it.
I would have, because if I had to do it. See, you know what the key is?
You would have done it well. Yeah.
The key is, it's not that I'm good at anything. The key is what you want. If you know what you want, you will do what you need to do to get it. Right? Now, it depends on how much time you care to take to get it, determines how excellently you do it.
Yeah, and there's also a certain amount of personal truth-telling. When somebody says, oh, I want to be a world-class musician, or I want to be a football star, but what they really want to do is sit on the couch playing video games, then they're going to wind up sitting on the couch playing video games and lamenting that they're not some rock star.
But they didn't want to do it. They didn't.
Well, yeah, but that's honesty with ourselves. That's that's probably 3 or 4 podcasts worth in there.
Listen, I got this mirror in my bathroom like everybody else does. That thing is rough sometimes. I walk past and I'm like, what are you doing? What is wrong with you? You better fix this. I don't know how that does not happen with people. That's just what...
I was criticized recently for taking an unflattering picture of somebody. It's like, there's only so much that I can do. with my lousy camera. The angle might have something to do with it, but, the subject matter might have something to do with it as well. All right, we're going way too far down the rabbit hole. It has been wonderful. We will continue next
That's
week.
where the deep stuff happens.
Yeah, we can talk about that after we're not on the podcast anymore, or the whatever this thing is. So yeah.